Welcome to the InnoGuide podcast. I'm your host, Bob Boudelier. This podcast, my website, and my weekly newsletter focus on helping you discover the secrets of innovation. Since I don't rely on paid ads, I want to thank our customers who subscribe to our AI Fusion Kickstarter program and those who leverage AI Fusion product development and coaching to bring human-centered AI into their organizations. You can find us at www.innoguide.net. In this episode, number 74, we'll be sharing Moving the Needle with Lean OKRs by Bart Den Haak. I enjoyed this book. It does have a lot of facts and figures in it, making it a challenge for a podcast, so I did try to smooth things out, and certainly anybody who's interested in learning more about the topic of Lean OKRs can certainly buy the book, and I do recommend buying it because OKRs have always been a challenge in every company I've been in. So having a better defined, more streamlined way to do it will be a benefit to anyone who wants to implement OKRs in their company. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode. Welcome to the InnoGuide podcast, where we share the works of authors and mentors to guide innovation. Let's get started. Since this is part 2 of 2, we'll pick up at chapter 9. If you've made it this far in the journey, you've already done the hard mental work. You've accepted that Lean OKRs aren't a goal format, they're an operating system. You've seen why focus matters, why business as usual eats strategy, why outcomes beat outputs, and why empowered teams, not heroic managers, are the real engine of change. Now we move into the part where most OKR programs either become real or quietly die. Because it's one thing to set ambitious OKRs in a workshop, but another thing entirely to keep them alive on a Tuesday morning when your inbox is on fire, a customer is escalating, and your team is already behind on normal work. This is where chapters 9 through the conclusion live. The execution habits, the weekly cadence, the reviews, the learning system, the experiments, the dashboards, and the cultural reinforcement that make OKRs something more than a quarterly document. So let's tell the story of what happens after the kickoff. Chapter 9, Weekly OKR Check-ins, the heartbeat that keeps OKRs alive. When people tell me OKRs didn't work for us, I usually don't start by asking to see their objectives and key results. I ask a different question. How often did you do real OKR check-ins, and what were they like? Because in my experience, if OKRs fail, it's rarely because of the wording being a little off. It's because the organization didn't build the rhythm. They set OKRs, they published them, maybe they even did an inspiring kickoff, and then business as usual showed up like it always does and swallowed the whole thing. Weekly check-ins are the habit that prevents that. OKRs are a team sport, and check-ins are the practice. The check-in is where accountability becomes real. Not vague accountability like everyone's responsible, but the kind of accountability where people look each other in the eye and say, here's what I'm going to do next, and here's what I expect to see on the measures. And this is a key difference from standard status meetings. A normal status meeting looks backward. What did we do last week? An OKR check-in is primarily forward-looking. Given what the measures are telling us, what will we do in the next 7 days to move the needle? Why this matters? Accountability plus progress loops. Two forces reinforce each other here. First, accountability changes behavior. There's a study often cited that makes the point in a way you can't unsee. When people simply intend to do something, follow-through is weak. When they verbally commit to someone, completion jumps. And when they add a regular accountability appointment, it jumps again, dramatically. The numbers in the chapter are striking, but the point is simple. Cadence works. Rhythm works. Second, progress is one of the strongest motivators humans have. People don't need constant cheerleading. They need to feel that their work is moving something meaningful forward. Emma Beale and Kramer call this the progress principle, the power of small wins. Weekly OKR check-ins manufacture those small wins by making progress visible and by forcing the team to interpret what's changing or not changing in the numbers. Cadence, weekly by default, sometimes daily. Weekly is the default because it's sustainable and it aligns with the kind of measures most teams can update. But the chapter encourages you to adapt the cadence to your situation, team maturity, level, team versus leadership, availability of daily, weekly measures. And there's an important leadership message here. If executives set quarterly OKRs, they also need to do weekly check-ins. Otherwise, OKRs become something done to teams rather than something leadership models as discipline. Major warning: boring check-ins kill the habit. If your measures don't change weekly, if you're relying on slow lag metrics, your check-ins become dull. Dull meetings get skipped. Skipped check-ins mean the OKR system goes dark, and then everyone wonders why OKRs didn't stick. So the chapter repeats earlier measurement cautions. Avoid metrics that don't change frequently enough. Avoid metrics teams can't influence. Favor lead measures tied to behavior, and accept manual data early. Automation can come later. How to run the weekly check-in, 15 to 30 minutes. This is a disciplined, short meeting. The chapter suggests Monday morning, but the real principle is don't skip it. If it's a holiday, delayed by a day, don't break the chain. Also, run the company check-in before team check-ins when possible, so teams have the latest company key result context. The chapter offers a 7-stage agenda. 1. Prepare. Key result owners update the dashboard before the meeting. Early on, manual updates are normal. 2. Report. Share what contributed to goals. Celebrate actual improvements. Keep it short. Be honest about business as usual interference. 3. Review with confidence scores. For each key result, set a confidence score, numeric or visual. The point isn't the score, it's the conversation it triggers. Health check, number 4. This is optional. Check essential life support metrics briefly. 5. Obstacles. Stretched OKRs imply obstacles. Use root cause methods like the 5 whys. Pick the biggest obstacle first. PDCA experiments or high-impact commitments. If 1 or 2 specific actions tied to the dashboard. No vague promises, no overcommitment. Stay in the learning zone. And close. 1 word or phrase from each person. It sounds small, but it surfaces tensions and ends cleanly. Again, the PDCA, it stands for plan, do, check, and act. This is that simple continuous improvement loop we talked about in the first part of the book, used to learn what works, adjust quickly, and steadily improve results. Confidence scoring. Feelings as a tool, not a weakness. Confidence scores a human judgment, what the data plus experience feels like. You can use numbers, traffic lights, mascots, whatever fits your culture. Green, on track. Amber, uncertain obstacles. Red, off track, need to intervene. Chapter even suggests a structured group scoring method, so you don't just default to the loudest voice. Daily OKR check-ins, the high-performance add-on. For mature teams with daily measures, daily check-ins can be powerful. 10 minutes, stand-up style, focused on the next 24 hours. Again, forward-looking, OKR-oriented. The nothing to report problem. Long initiatives can make weekly check-ins feel empty. The chapter suggests slicing work into smaller experiments so progress is visible weekly instead of waiting weeks for a big reveal. Practical add-ons: integrate, celebrate, and report out. Integrate with existing rhythms, scrum, stand-ups, demos, to reduce overhead. Celebrate learning in progress, even failures that reveal big learnings. SpaceX is referenced as an example of progress even when something crashes. And report out carefully, only in psychologically safe environments. That last point really matters. The more you make goals and numbers visible, the more you have to protect safety. Otherwise, people game the numbers or hide bad news. Chapter 9 is the heartbeat. But a heartbeat alone isn't enough. You need reflection. And that's the topic of Chapter 10. Chapter 10, Reviewing Your OKRs, Turning Effort into Learning. Even with weekly check-ins, teams can spend a quarter pushing hard in the wrong direction. Why? Because business as usual pressure is relentless. Leaders are busy, teams are tired, and without a structured moment to step back, strategy drifts. So Chapter 10 makes the case for the review workshop as the mechanism that converts execution into insight. The cost of skipping reviews. The chapter tells a story that captures the risk perfectly. A leadership team finally joined an OKR review after teams had run 3 cycles alone. Within 30 minutes, the CFO realized the organization had been running in the wrong direction for months on a churn reduction strategy. The point isn't blame, it's the predictable consequence of moving fast without reflection. You can work hard and still not move the needle. The review workshop is how you prevent that. What the OKR review is for. A real review answers questions like, did the OKR impact strategy or just generate activity? What did we learn from achievements and failures? Should we adjust measures, tactics, or even strategy? How do we improve the OKR process itself? And the chapter draws a clean distinction. Check-ins look forward, next week's commitments. Reviews look back, what happened, why, and what changes now. Timing, quarterly minimum, sometimes mid-quarter. Most cycles are quarterly, so reviews happen at the end of the 90 days before the next setting workshop. But the author also suggests a mid-quarter review can help, because waiting until quarter end reduces your ability to pivot. 2 settings, private retrospective plus optional public review. This is a smart design choice. Private retrospective, team only, psychological safety first, real honesty, real learning. Public internal review, broader audience, share learning across the company, increase accountability, and spread the practice. The author prefers private, then public, because teams need a safe space before they can share lessons credibly. Private retrospectives, an agile-inspired 5-stage flow. 1. Set the stage. 2. Gather data. What worked, what didn't, what will we try differently? 3. Generate insights, pattern root causes. 4. Decide what to do. Few concrete improvements with owners. And 5. Close. Improve the retro itself and cleanly. There's also a note on grading key results. It can be useful, but only if it creates insight. If it turns into bureaucracy, get rid of it. Public review. Make learning visible without blame. This chapter outlines a simple agenda. Company review, short. Team department reviews, short. Celebrate failures and successes, and close. Leaders admitting mistakes publicly is highlighted as powerful because it builds authenticity and trust, but also rare because it's uncomfortable. Celebrations, reinforcement without compensation. Celebrations are recommended, but explicitly not tied to pay. The idea is to sustain energy around stretch goals with appreciation and fun, sometimes even surprise-based. Finally, the chapter resets expectations. Successful adoption is slow culture work, often 1 to 3 years. Patience matters. If Chapter 9 is execution and Chapter 10 is learning, Chapter 11 answers the question that hits every team. Okay, but how do we actually move the needle? Chapter 11, How to Move the Needle. Sense-making plus Toyota Kata. Once OKRs move from planning to execution, teams hit a wall. They realize moving key results isn't a linear project plan problem. It's a sense-making and learning problem. And the core move of this chapter is this. Stop thinking, execute the plan. Start thinking, choose the right response strategy for the kind of problem you're in. Kinevin? Choose your response based on the domain. This chapter uses the Kinevin framework to decide how to act. Clear domain. Cause and effect is known. Best practices exist. Response? Small action list. Prioritize, commit. Not the horrible action list trap. These are short cycle actions tied to quick feedback. Complicated domain. Cause and effect exist, but require expertise and analysis. Response? Baseline, diagnose, 5 whys, fishbone, prototype, and iterate. Complex domain. Cause and effect is only clear in retrospect. Response? Run multiple safe-to-fail experiments. Shorten the horizon. Let patterns emerge. And 4th is chaotic domain, crisis territory. Response? Act fast to stabilize, then move toward a domain where sense-making is possible. And there's a warning for agile teams. Don't force uncertainty into a backlog permanently. If you can cleanly decompose everything into epics and tasks, you might be in clear or complicated, not complex. In complex territory, premature planning is often false confidence. Obstacles or information. Chapter reframes obstacles as the point of stretch goals. In a complex adaptive system, aggressive target conditions reveal constraints you didn't know were there. Obstacles are not failure, they're information. Toyota Kata. Scientific thinking as the execution engine. To navigate uncertainty, the chapter proposes Toyota Kata, deliberate practice routines for improvement in coaching. The improvement Kata maps cleanly to OKRs. 1. Direction, your OKRs. 2. Current conditions, baseline, X in from X to Y. 3. Target condition, a nearer term state, 1 to 4 weeks. 4. Obstacles plus PDCA experiments. Run experiments to learn and remove obstacles. The quarterly target is too far away to steer day by day. Target conditions make the next move concrete. Micro OKRs, 1 to 4 week stepping stones. To make target conditions easier, the author introduces micro OKRs, a mini objective and key results for the next 4 weeks. One micro objective at a time. Short lifespan, faster learning, small wins. Don't lose sight of the larger goal. Chapter includes an onboarding drop-off example. The team has a key result to reduce drop-off from 12% to 5%. The great now what becomes define the target condition, identify obstacles, and run experiments. Obstacles. Define them well and pick one. 2 pitfalls. Overestimating the number of obstacles and framing obstacles as complaints instead of questions. Also, time, budget, headcount are constraints, not obstacles. The process is practical. Brainstorm obstacles as questions, affinity map, dot vote. Pick the number one obstacle to focus on. Chapter 11 gives you the thinking model. Chapter 12 gives you the execution method. Chapter 12. Experiments. Navigating through unknown territory. This chapter argues that experimentation is not an occasional activity. For stretched OKRs, it's the core skill. Adults, especially experts, tend to jump straight to building the solution, but that reflex creates opinion wars and wasted quarters. So the author gives a reframing question to break stalemates. What would you like to learn about the obstacle? That moves the team from debate to evidence. 2 experiment types matched to Kinevin. Hypothesis testing, which is complicated. If X, then Y. Aim for controlled causal learning. And exploratory experiments, complex. Probe the system, learn patterns. Failure is expected. Microsoft's experience is cited. About 1/3 of experiments fail. That's not a bug, it's the cost of learning fast. Proving causality, not just coincidence. A key warning, seeing an outcome after a change doesn't prove the change caused it. Use designs like A/B testing when possible. 2 groups, compare outcomes. The OKR experiment loop, PDCA plus Canvas. The chapter frames experiments as PDCA applied to obstacles, tracked via an experiment canvas. Obstacle, related key result, hypothesis, experiment, measures, results, and learning. 6-step experiment routine. 1. Define expected outcomes, hypothesis. 2. Define the experiment, what you'll do plus how you'll measure. 3. Ask 5 powerful Toyota Kata coaching questions. 4. Run the experiment. 5. Check what happened. Look at the evidence. And 6. Capture learning and standardize what works. Understanding performance. Time series thinking. The second half of the chapter focuses on not fooling yourself with data. 2 data points don't prove significance. Snapshots mislead. You need time series thinking. The chapter, this is important, so I'm going to quote right out of the book here. I highlighted this whole section. I think it's very important. A principle for understanding data states. While every data set contains noise, some data sets may contain signals. Therefore, before you can detect a signal within any given data set, you must first filter out the noise. And this is from Wheeler. As I've learned from Wheeler's work, the tool for filtering out that noise is a control chart that combines individual values X and moving ranges MR, also known as the XMR chart. This chart will tell you if you're looking at a normally performing system, at noise, or if there are signals that prove your experiments and changes are sustainable. If you want to know more about XMR, I recommend reading Understanding Variation by Wheeler, 2000. What I can tell you is that XMR is a great tool for helping leaders and teams separate the noise from real signals in OKRs and KPI performance. Whether you are measuring business, team, or individual performance, control charts help you separate the noise from the signals that really matter. So the signals to look for are these 3. 1. Outliers. Data points outside the limits. Investigate the root causes of these. Second signal to look for, sustained shift. Like 8 points on one side of an average. It's likely that your experiment had an effect here. You see this. And 3, short-term big change. an early warning pattern, and again, investigate the root cause. If the measure is chaotic, wild fluctuations, don't set targets yet, stabilize the system first. Experiments create learning. Charts help you see whether the learning created sustained change. Then Chapter 13 says, none of this works if the score isn't visible. Chapter 13. OKR check-in dashboards. Keeping score changes behavior. Chapter 13 argues that dashboards aren't about reporting, they're about feedback. Teams play differently when they can see the score. An OKR dashboard should answer, are we getting closer to the objective? Are key results moving consistently? What do we need to do next based on what we see? The chapter acknowledges dashboard fatigue. Many dashboards fail because they're stale, too complex, or disconnected from decisions. OKR dashboards must invite frequent engagement. Core elements of a check-in dashboard? 1. OKRs, objective plus key result progress. The objective should be prominent, often the title. Lag measures should be shown as trends, ideally with control chart thinking. And lead measures can use other visuals. If you run micro OKRs, show both the main OKR and the micro OKR. The second core element of a dashboard, confidence scores, right next to key results to surface risk. And 3, health metrics. A few do not break indicators. Keep it light, 2 to 5 for teams, a small set across people, process, product, business for higher levels. Domain-specific additions, Kinevin again. In complicated, complex domains, show micro OKRs, current obstacle, experiment canvas, and active experiments. In clear or complicated domains, show top commitments and tasks that will move the needle. This prevents a mistake, treating complex work like project tracking. Placement. Dashboards must be unavoidable. If dashboards are hidden, they won't be used. Put them where teams will see them daily. Make them visible to others. Remote teams need repetition. Dashboards must show up in weekly check-ins, leadership updates, and one-on-ones. Obaya/OKR Room Scaling Visibility. For larger orgs, the chapter recommends an Obaya-style big room with walls for OKRs, health metrics, obstacles, experiments, shared situational awareness, reduce silos. Engagements, lead measures plus gamification. 2 conditions, up-to-date and worth looking at. Lead measures help because they change faster. Chapter also suggests carefully using game design experiments, points, badges, themes, avatars, to sustain attention and emotional energy, not gimmicks, engagement. Software skepticism. The author is skeptical of dedicated OKR software. Good practice reduces complexity. Most OKR tools don't aggregate data well or support strong historical visualization. Business intelligence capability matters more. Start manual, automate later. Also, keep business-as-usual task boards separate from OKR dashboards. Don't mix outputs with outcomes. Psychological safety warning. Public dashboards can backfire if used to shame teams. Unsafe dashboards cause gaming and distort data. Teams must feel safe to discuss bad numbers openly. And then the book closes with the conclusion, tying it all together and setting expectations for what happens over the first year. So here's the conclusion. Lean OKRs as a lightweight system for BHAGs in uncertainty. BHAGs, of course, are big, hairy, audacious goals. Lean OKRs are presented as a thorough but lightweight goal-setting and execution system for companies trying to achieve big, ambitious goals in a world that doesn't cooperate with long-term plans. The method is rooted in lean thinking, theory of constraints, agile, and strengthened by behavioral science. Toyota Kata, Kinevin, 4DX, game design, and dashboards, all aimed at reflection, learning, and sustained progress. What Lean OKRs are responding to: excess inventory. The conclusion repeats a core claim. Many organizations fail because they create too many OKRs. Lean OKRs are designed to correct that. Fewer, more meaningful goals, often one OKR at only a few levels, tough choices that create focus, transparency, experimentation, and alignment. The leadership model, mission command. Lean OKRs require leaders to set challenges, outcomes, not dictate solutions. Teams must be trusted and equipped to solve complex problems. Without empowerment, OKRs become performative tracking. 6 elements of Lean OKRs in a nutshell. 1. Focus on a single OKR. 2. Write outcome-based OKRs. 3. Run a cycle with weekly check-ins at its heart. 4. Build a generative culture inside Mission Command. 5. Keep teams in the learning zone. And 6. Coach moving the needle method, Kinevin, Toyota Kata, experiments, and dashboards. Lean OKRs are not a goal format. They are a behavior change and learning system wrapped around execution discipline. What to expect early. No overnight miracles. The conclusion sets realistic expectations for the first 90 days. OKR quality won't be perfect. Treat early cycles as learning. Logistics and facilitation matter. Data will be messy. Early OKRs may be internally focused to build capacity. Clarify activity versus outcome measures. For people, transparency can be a cultural shock. Expect early adopters and pushback. Real impact takes time, often a full year, and consider coaching support. For check-ins, even without perfect data, build the weekly routine. Keep meetings short, interesting, punctual, and data-driven. Prevent tech failures and irrelevant metric deep dives. Software teams often adopt check-ins faster. Use that momentum to build OKR muscles. After 6 months and after a year. At 6 months, operations become smoother and you can raise ambition. You have data history and dashboards get richer. Confidence scoring becomes easier. Leaders encourage flexibility and experimentation. After a year, the ROI becomes visible. Teams become better at outcomes and learning. Cadence may be adjusted. Check-ins mature from confidence status toward obstacles and experimentation. The future, a marathon, not a sprint. The conclusion frames OKRs as commitments, challenges, dialogue, and adaptability. The cadence is powerful, but change is a marathon. Very ambitious companies aiming for a 10x outcome will use a scientific experimental approach. And the final message is empowering. By now, you should feel confident that OKRs can make a significant positive difference, and you should feel ready to step outside of the comfort zone. So that wraps it up for today. As you can see, OKRs are really an engine for innovation, and you have to have an organization that has the psychological safety and the leadership on board with an OKR approach to growing innovation within the company. And of course, innovation is required to keep companies relevant because we all know what happened to Blockbuster and Kmart, and we don't want that for our organizations. So thanks again for your time and attention. This has been part 2 of Moving the Needle with Lean OKRs by Bart Den Haak. If you're implementing OKRs in your organization, I highly recommend picking up a copy of this book. There's a lot of detail in it, much more than I'm presenting here, but with this as a high-level overview, you'll know where to look in the book, and in my experience, this is the best way to implement OKRs that I have seen because the methods we've used at all the different companies where I've worked have not been effective. Remember that our website is innoguide.net, where I have many resources for innovators and people who want to build medical products with or without embedded AI, those who want to use AI in their process, and those who want to learn AI in the development process. And you'll be learning it from someone who's worked in medtech for 30 years and has been using large language models since they emerged in 2022. And I've been using embedded machine learning models for almost 10 years. I want to thank Steve McIntyre for producing this, and I want to thank you again for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next time. That's a wrap.